trip to England. President Joe Biden seeks to renew U.S. alliances and confirms a sweeping plan to provide vaccines overseas. Dr. Anthony Fauci under fire. Republicans raise questions about the source of the coronavirus crisis. Resignation denied. Why Pope Francis wants a German cardinal to keep working. And flowers for a prince. How the Duke of Edinburgh is being remembered on what would have been his 100th birthday. On EWTN News Nightly for Thursday, June 10th, 2021. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. I'm Tracy Sable. President Joe Biden and British Prime Minister Boris Johnson sit down together in the United Kingdom. Their meeting comes ahead of the Group of Seven Nations Summit in England. One of the key issues on the agenda, the global pandemic. And today, the president laid out America's plan to help vaccinate the world. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reports. Owen.
Tracy, good evening to you. Over the course of the next several days, President Joe Biden will take part in multiple summits. He'll also hold a face-to-face meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin. But before all that happens, today he outlined his plan to send 500 million COVID-19 vaccines to countries around the globe in dire need.
President Joe Biden and First Lady Jill Biden greeted at this scenic seaside resort in southwest England by UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson and his wife, Carrie.
It's gorgeous. I don't want to go home.
And seated in front of reporters, the president who once called the British leader a physical and emotional clone of former President Donald Trump exchanged pleasantries with the Prime Minister.
It's a great pleasure, Mr. President, to welcome you to Cornwall.
It's a great pleasure to be here.
Fantastic to see you.
Both leaders, who have political and personal differences, also inspected some historical World War II documents and now facing another global battle, the coronavirus pandemic. While there, President Joe Biden announcing the U.S. will buy 500 million more doses of the Pfizer vaccine to share with poor countries.
Importantly, this is the mRNA vaccine, which has proven to be extremely effective.
The president said the shots will start going out in August, 200 million delivered this year, 300 million in the first half of 2022, and no strings attached.
We're doing this to save lives, to end this pandemic. That's it, period.
As world leaders convene over the coming days, the president will be tested on several other fronts, ending in a face-to-face meeting with Russia's president. And First Lady Jill Biden, wearing a jacket with the word love on the back, says her husband's ready.
Also, both nations signed a new Atlantic Charter. It includes, among other things, protection of religious freedoms, as well as advancing a free and open internet. They also formed a new task force to help improve travel, post-pandemic travel, between the UK and the US. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
On top, Republicans on the House Oversight and Judiciary Committees are demanding answers from Dr. Anthony Fauci. They want the director of the U.S. National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases to testify before Congress and to explain his previous sworn testimony about the origins of COVID-19. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales reports.
Congressman James Comer and Jim Jordan say the issue in question has to do whether any U.S. tax dollars was used to fund gain-of-function research at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. That's a Chinese lab where some officials believe that the coronavirus originated from.
We know what Dr. Fauci said a year ago. He downplayed the idea that this virus could have originated from the lab there in Wuhan, China. The truth is, we don't know if that's where it started, but it sure seems likely that that's the case.
In a letter sent to Dr. Fauci, the two congressmen want him to testify before Congress and clarify statements he made during a 2012 conference about gain-of-function research, where Dr. Fauci said,
"What historically investigators have done is to actually create gain-of-function by making mutations, passage adaptation, or other newer genetic techniques such as reverse genetics."
Congressman Jordan says in 2014, Dr. Fauci, through the National Institutes of Health, awarded $3 million to Echo Health Alliance Incorporated to, quote, test predictions of coronavirus transmission using reverse genetics. The congressman says funds from this grant were subsequently awarded to the Wuhan lab. But yet on May 11, 2021, while testifying under oath, Dr. Fauci said,
The NIH has not ever and does not now fund gain-of-function research in the Wuhan Institute.
This week, two scientists argued in an opinion piece for the Wall Street Journal, stating that the genetic footprint of the COVID-19 pathogen, quote, has never been observed in a natural coronavirus, suggesting it could be man-made. In an interview Wednesday with MSNBC's Chuck Todd, Dr. Fauci responded to the Republican criticism.
So if you are trying to, get at me as a public health official and a scientist, you're really attacking not only Dr. Anthony Fauci, you're attacking science.
It's important to note that EWTN News Nightly reached out to Dr. Fauci. My emails never got a response. President Biden has asked the intelligence agencies to look into the origins of the coronavirus. The report is expected to be completed at the end of August. I'll keep you updated. At the Capitol, Eric Rosales, EWTN News Nightly.
Well, joining us now is Tom Bevin, co-founder and president of Real Clear Politics. Tom, welcome back. Great to see you. As Eric just mentioned, there are calls for Dr. Fauci to appear before Congress. What are your thoughts on that and what appears to be the growing evidence and support for the lab leak theory?
Yeah, the picture continues to emerge. And in addition to Fauci being asked to testify again to clarify some of his previous statements and react to some of the additional reporting that has come out, there, 3 senators called on him to resign. Republican senators are calling on him to resign and or be fired by President Biden. So, look, I think Dr. Fauci has been in the center of the public eye now throughout the pandemic. He was lionized from the beginning, but we're beginning to learn more about his role and the possibility that he wasn't always frank with the American people and some of the things that he said. So I think there's a lot more to this story and to trying to find the origins of the COVID virus. There's a lot more work to be done. And hopefully at some point we will get to the bottom of it because we need to know how this started so it won't happen again.
Yeah, and as we recently heard, Dr. Fauci said the criticism of him is, quote, an attack on science. Do you think that's a fair assessment?
I think that was a wild overstep on his part. It's an absolute straw man. I mean, Dr. Fauci is not above criticism. He's a public health official, and he works for the American taxpayer, and so we have every right to scrutinize and criticize. Every American does, including elected officials, and to somehow throw up this heat shield to say that, well, if you're attacking me, you're attacking science. And that is a wild overstatement. And it's a deflection, actually, away from him. And I'm really surprised that he did it because it makes you wonder why he went that route, because it immediately drew more scrutiny toward him because of the way he said that and tried to basically put himself above criticism. And that is not how this works.
Yeah, Tom, I'm going to switch gears for a minute here. A federal probe found the decision to clear protesters from an area in front of the White House last summer was not influenced by President Donald Trump's plans to stage a photo op there. However, at the time, as you know, many media outlets were reporting the opposite. Can you talk about that and why it was not the only time that the media got it wrong when it came to Trump?
Yeah, I mean, this is the latest example, another example of how the media absolutely abdicated their responsibility and rushed forward to report things that turned out later. Now we find, a full year later in this case, that it simply was not true. And we just talked about the lab leak theory. That's another example, in part because it was driven by the media's antipathy toward Donald Trump. And when he suggested that it was possible that this virus leaked from a lab, they immediately ridiculed that statement. They ignored any evidence to construct this preferred narrative, and that's exactly what happened with the Lafayette Square situation. There was plenty of evidence. Had the press not rushed to judgment, had they taken their time and I think investigated, as the Inspector General report came out, they would find that there were alternate explanations to what happened that day. But again, the press wasn't willing or able to hear any of that and decided to rush forward with the narrative. Those are just 2 examples, but there are plenty more. And it's unfortunate because I think the media's credibility has been really tarnished over the last few years.
And not a lot of time left, about 30 seconds or so. But lastly, President Joe Biden, as you know, is appearing at the G7 summit. What are the expectations for the trip, and in particular, his meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin?
Yeah, I mean, the expectations for his meeting with Putin, I think, are very low. And I think part of what Joe Biden wants to do, and you've heard him say this in his speeches, is to try and reset and say, listen, America is back. And because Trump had obviously some prickly relations with some of our European allies, and Joe Biden wants to basically change tack and go back to the sort of, we're all in this together, go along, get along type of mentality. And I think that's being well received, but that's certainly part of this. I'm not sure anything substantive is really going to come out of any of the meetings that he's going to be with, other than sort of the public relations message that he's trying to send to folks around the world.
All right, gotta leave it right there. Thank you so much, Tom. Tom Bevin, co-founder and president of Real Clear Politics. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Pope Francis has not accepted the resignation of German Cardinal Reinhard Marx over the handling of clergy abuse cases. Responding to Cardinal Marx's recent request, the Holy Father wrote the clergy abuse scandal could not be avoided. The Pope stressed every bishop should assume responsibility for failures to protect young people separately. 3 German Catholics have formally requested for the Vatican to determine whether a church schism exists in Germany. A deadly clash between Israeli soldiers and suspected Palestinian militants has raised tensions in the West Bank. Israel says it was trying to arrest 2 members of Islamist Jihad when its police came under attack. 3 Palestinians were killed. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas condemns what he calls a dangerous Israeli escalation. Russia is outlawing organizations founded by opposition leader Alexei Navalny. The Putin challenger was jailed last winter after returning to Russia following recovery from nerve poisoning. Today in Geneva, Navalny's daughter accepted a human rights award on his behalf. A court in Ireland will hear a case testing the nation's 2018 Health Act, which allowed provisions for abortion. A couple claims they ended a healthy pregnancy after a mistaken prenatal diagnosis for an abnormality. The medical facilities involved deny wrongdoing. Queen Elizabeth II has marked the centennial birthday of her late husband, Prince Philip. Last week, the Queen received a newly bred rose named for the Duke of Edinburgh from the Royal Horticultural Society. It was planted in the Windsor Castle Gardens as a commemoration. Proceeds from its sale will support a fund for youth, which the late Prince established in 1956. Coming up, ProLife Law Blocked. Why one state's case could go to the Supreme Court. And fight over pronouns. A teacher takes a stand against his school's transgender policy. Lawmakers in North Carolina are considering whether to ban abortion based on a diagnosis of Down syndrome. The proposal is expected to pass the state Senate. Democratic Governor Roy Cooper is not likely to sign the measure. And in Missouri, a federal appeals court has blocked the state's pro-life measure from taking effect. The state passed a law banning abortion after 8 weeks. Republican Attorney General Eric Schmidt says he plans to appeal to the Supreme Court. Earlier this week, a county court in Virginia reinstated a teacher suspended for opposing a proposed school transgender pronoun policy. Tanner Cross, a teacher at Leesburg Elementary School, spoke out against the school's proposed preferred pronoun policy during the public comment portion of a school board meeting. A number of people rallied to support him, and Alliance Defending Freedom filed a lawsuit on his behalf. A judge called Cross's suspension unconstitutional. Joining us now is Logan Spina, legal counsel at Alliance Defending Freedom. Logan, welcome back. Thanks so much for your time. This is a win for ADF and your client, Tanner Cross. What was Tanner's reaction when the judge ruled to reinstate him while the case continues?
Hi, and thanks so much for having me back. Tanner was extremely excited. Tanner wants to do what he loves to do and what he does best, which is teach his children and his students to be healthy and to have fun. And Tanner then was extremely excited to be able to go back to doing that and to see that the court acknowledged that the school district couldn't suspend him for his constitutionally protected speech.
I know the school originally suspended Tanner and banned him from campus because they said his speech at a school board meeting was disruptive. For those who may not be familiar with the case, can you tell us exactly what he said?
I can't tell you word for word. You can find that on our website, adflegal.org, and also in the court's opinion that's published there. But Tanner expressed concern for his students, and he expressed concern for the way the policy would require him to refer to some students in ways that weren't consistent with their biological sex, right? To call boys girls in some cases, or to call little girls boys. He said that the policy would cause him to lie, and that isn't right, and he wouldn't lie to his students. So he objected in the public comment period when the board was just considering adopting that policy, and that's what he was punished for. But the First Amendment protects your right to do exactly what Tanner did, and so we're grateful that the court acknowledged that and ordered Tanner to be reinstated.
And the policies that Tanner spoke out against, as we mentioned, are proposed and have not yet gone into effect. How do you see this all playing out? And do you anticipate seeing more people like Tanner Cross speaking out?
With regard to Tanner's case in particular, we're going to continue to pursue Tanner's case through the Virginia court system until we receive a judgment or a favorable settlement. And we do hope that this will lead to more people speaking out. People across the country are concerned with what's going on in the classroom. The Constitution protects their right to do so without fear of government retaliation, and we hope people will see Tanner as an example and utilize that right to affect education in their communities for the better.
And Logan, can you talk to us about why this case is so important when it comes to free speech and religious liberty, and also what comes next?
Sure. I mean, what we saw with Tanner is something that we are seeing across the country, a rejection of the value of free speech, people trying to silence people, especially conservative Christians who are concerned with the way these policies compel speech. So the case is important generally because it reaffirms that everyone, including public employees, have the right to speak on this issue without being punished. And so in terms of kind of what comes next, we hope that, again, people will utilize this right that's protected, enshrined in the First Amendment and the Virginia Constitution and many other state constitutions to speak up on these issues.
Logan Spina, Alliance Defending Freedom, thank you so much for your time today. Appreciate you coming on.
Thanks very much.
The coronavirus mass dispensations end next week for Catholics in Massachusetts. The Diocese of Springfield and Fall River and the Archdiocese of Boston are restoring the Sunday obligation except for the ill or homebound. The Diocese of Worcester did so last month. Up next, the joy of love, how the Church is implementing the Holy Father's apostolic exhortation. And heavenly bodies. Take a closer look at a stunning solar eclipse. At the Vatican, a group of clergy and lay people have gathered to discuss the Holy Father's 2016 letter regarding pastoral care of families. The initiative is part of the Amoris Laetitia Family Year. The discussion topics include how lay people can help families remain close to the Church. And where are we with Amoris Laetitia? Joining us now are two people who spoke at the online meeting today, Mary Rose Verret and Ryan Verret, founders of Witness to Love. Thank you both for joining us. Mary Rose, I'd like to start with you. First off, remind us again, what are the main points of Amoris Laetitia?
Oh, thank you so much for having us, Tracy. Amoris Laetitia is really a framework for really renewing the infrastructure for discipleship and evangelization when it comes to marriage and family. So, and there's many topics that are covered, but one of the things that Pope Francis said in his presentation to us yesterday was that really we shouldn't cherry pick the difficult parts, and Cardinal Farrell reiterated that we shouldn't say we can do this part because it's easy and we shouldn't do this part because it's difficult, but that when the Church as a whole, when the entire church community around the globe has said, these are challenges, these are problems, these need to be addressed, that we should really collaborate as a church and being open to the Holy Spirit and really to address these concerns that families face.
And Ryan, this next question is for you. What is it that you specifically talked about, and what did you highlight, and why did you do it?
We were specifically invited by the Vatican to present on the use in witness to love of mentors, or what Amoris Laetitia or Pope Francis has referred to as evangelizing spouses. Evangelizing spouses really fill a gap when it comes to what we were suggesting, this new infrastructure of discipleship and evangelization. Mentors really fill a space in the hearts and in the minds and the relationships that young couples who are engaged today need to be re-welcomed back into the church. They really help to fill a space of kind of rebuilding trust, not only in the church, but also, just in the Lord, and trust that marriage is something that is still an ongoing great gift. It's the greatest gift, right? And so we were invited to share our experience now with thousands of couples over the past 10 years throughout North America and beyond, of how mentors have really helped to build that bridge between newly married couples and the sacramental life of the church.
Yeah, and that is so important. Mary Rose, I understand that you were part of the forum as founder of Witness to Love. Explain to us more about your project.
Absolutely. So Witness to Love is really a marriage movement trying to help every couple see their home, every sacramentally married couple see their home as a missionary outpost of the local church, and to really form couples to understand that, to live that, to embrace it. And so what we found is there's so many great programs and there's so many great movements and resources in the church today. But there isn't really an infrastructure for evangelization. And so Witness to Love is all about getting really the materials, the witness, the tools into couples' hands, into parishes' hands, into pastors' hands, so that that evangelization can happen, because family really is the future of our church. And so churches without families are churches that will close. And so we are very, very passionate about keeping the church open, but that starts with serving the domestic church.
And before I let you both go, I'm wondering, what was your reaction when the Vatican asked you to speak? And this can go to either one of you or both.
Our reaction, so we live in South Louisiana. We live down a little gravel road, and we have 5 children, and we stay pretty busy, with all the activities that are required. And I think it was really humbling, and it was a gift to. No marriage out there is perfect. We're still working on ours. But to be able to be put in a place that we can collaborate with people, marriage champions from around the globe and around the universal church who love Christ and who love just what Christ revealed about marriage, and wanting to share that in a way that just makes sense to young people today, so that they can really respond in a way and be a part of the life of the church that we want our children to have when they grow up.
Well, Mary Rose and Ryan, thank you both so much for coming on today. We really appreciate it, and thank you for what you do. God bless.
God bless.
Thank you.
And finally tonight, some areas of the Northern Hemisphere experienced a partial solar eclipse today in the U.S. Coastal areas from New York to Maryland saw the moon's shadow create an orange crescent sun. The eclipse centered along northwest Greenland and Canada's Hudson Bay, where the Ring of Fire was most fully present as the sun's unblocked rays brilliantly lit the moon's edges. Very neat stuff there. And we thank you for watching tonight. For the entire EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Tracy Sable. Good night and God bless.